somewhere tonight. A room is quieter than it used to be. Not empty, just quieter. Someone is sitting in it with a phone in their hand, and they have opened your name, and they have closed it again, and they have opened it a second time without deciding to. You do not know this is happening. You would not believe it if someone told you, because from where you are standing, nothing has changed. You went to work, you handled what needed handling. You did not check their profile today, and you are quietly proud of that, and also slightly annoyed at yourself for keeping score. But something has shifted, not in the sky, not in some invisible realm. You have to take on faith in you, and the people who knew the old version of you are beginning to notice that the person they had cataloged no longer matches the person in front of them. Chosen one, that is what this message is about. But it is not going where you think. I am going to walk you through 4 things tonight. What they got wrong about you. What actually changed while nobody was watching. Why this is surfacing now and not 2 years ago. And what you are supposed to do with it, because there is a decision buried in here and most people miss it entirely. And then at the very end, I will tell you who the shock actually belongs to. It is not who you assume. Let us start with what they got wrong. They mistook your patience for availability. That is the first misreading, and it is the one that cost you the most. You waited, you gave second chances, you answered the message that came 3 days late as though it had come on time. You told yourself you were being gracious, and part of you was. But somewhere along the way, your patience stopped being read as generosity and started being read as guaranteed. They stopped experiencing you as someone who chooses to stay and began experiencing you as someone who is simply there, like furniture, like weather. That is not entirely their fault, and it is not entirely yours either. It is what happens when someone gives without ever naming the cost. They mistook your kindness for a lack of options. You were soft with them in a season when you did not have to be. You explained things twice. You forgave things that deserved a conversation. You made yourself easy to be around, because you had learned somewhere in your history that difficult people get left. And they read all of that and concluded quietly that you were kind because you had nowhere else to go. They mistook your silence for defeat. This is the one that stings, so let me say it carefully. When you finally went quiet, you were not sulking. You were not staging anything. You had reached the end of what you could carry, and the only thing left in you was stillness. They saw the stillness and thought they had won something. They did not understand that some silence is retreat, and some silence is a decision that has already been made and simply has not been announced yet. Now, here is where it turns. Because something happened during that silence that nobody planned, including you. You stopped auditioning. You cannot name the day it happened. There was no moment of triumph, no morning you woke up healed. It was more like a slow subtraction. 1 week you stopped rehearsing conversations in the shower. Another week you noticed you had not checked your phone during dinner. A month later you realized you had stopped adjusting your voice around certain people. And underneath all of that, a much larger thing was being removed from you without your permission. The need to be chosen by anyone in particular. That is not bitterness. Bitterness is loud and busy. This was quieter than that. You simply stopped organizing your inner life around whether one person approved of you. And the space that opened up when you stopped was enormous, and at first it felt like loneliness. It was not loneliness, it was room. Now let me speak about heaven's part in this, and I want to speak humbly because no one on earth can measure God's reasoning with certainty. But consider this possibility. What if the door that stayed closed was not a punishment, but a covering? Think about who you were before that season. Think honestly. You would have said yes to almost anything that felt like relief. You would have accepted crumbs and called it a feast because you were hungry, and hunger is not a good negotiator. You would have moved into a relationship or a job or an arrangement that would have cost you years to leave. If everything you asked for had been handed to you back then, you would have received it with hands that were not yet steady enough to hold it. So perhaps the delay was not neglect. Perhaps it was the time required for your hands to stop shaking. There is an old idea in Scripture that people look at the outside while God looks at the interior. And whatever you believe about the source of that idea, you know from experience that it describes something true. The people around you were reading your surface, your composure, your usefulness, your convenient willingness. Nobody was reading the interior, but the interior is where everything actually happened. That is where the exhaustion turned into clarity. That is where the disappointment turned into standards. That is where you quietly stopped being someone who could be handled. And here is the first thing I want you to understand tonight. The version of you they knew is no longer available. Not out of revenge, out of arithmetic. She does not live there anymore. He does not answer to that anymore. The person who could be reached with a 3-word message at 11 at night has moved and left no forwarding address and did not do it to be cruel. Now, I have to be honest with you about something, and I would rather be honest than dramatic. Nobody can tell you with certainty what is happening inside another human being's mind right now. Not me. Not anyone with a camera and a soft voice. Anyone who claims to read a specific person's thoughts for you is selling you something, and you have already paid too much for things like that. What I can tell you is this, and it is far more useful. When a person changes the way you have changed, the people around them respond. Reliably, almost mechanically. Not because of mystical frequencies, but because human beings are constantly reading each other. And you have started transmitting something different. You answer more slowly. Your voice has less pleading in it. You do not fill silences anymore. You let a question sit there instead of rushing to make everyone comfortable. People feel that, especially people who benefited from the old arrangement. And some of them will feel it as loss. That part is not your responsibility to manage. Before I go further, I need to stop and say something directly to you, because you have been strong for a long time and nobody has checked on you. You have carried enough. Not everything, not forever, but enough that no one should be asking you to prove your endurance again. I know how much of that season you spent pretending you were fine at family gatherings, pretending you were not waiting for a message, pretending you had not looked at their profile in the parking lot before going inside, pretending most of all that you did not care as much as you did. There was no shame in caring that much. Caring deeply is not a defect. It is what makes you the kind of person people come to when their life falls apart. The problem was never your heart. The problem was where you were spending it. And if you were harder on yourself than you would ever be on a friend in the same situation, and you were let that go tonight, you were not stupid, you were hopeful with incomplete information. Everyone who has ever loved anyone has done that. Now let me tell you the second thing, and this is the center of the whole message. The real shock does not belong to them. It belongs to you. Because somewhere in the last several months you discovered something about yourself that reorganized everything, and you have barely acknowledged it. You discovered that you survive, not gracefully, not the way it looks in a photograph, but you got up. You paid what you could. You kept a promise to someone who needed you. You had a day where you laughed and then felt guilty for laughing and then decided the guilt was unnecessary. You found out that the thing you feared most, being alone with yourself, was survivable. Difficult, but survivable. And once you know that, a certain kind of leverage over you disappears forever. That is the discovery. That is the thing that changes everything. Because for years, part of you believed that if that person walked away, something essential in you would stop working. They walked away. It did not stop working. You are still here, still capable, still kind, which is the part that amazes me most, because plenty of people come out of that season cruel and you did not. Do you understand what that means about you? It means your worth was never being determined in someone else's mind. It was never up for a vote. It was never contingent on being selected. You were operating under a system where their opinion was the scoreboard, and that system has quietly collapsed, and you have been walking around inside the ruins of it without noticing that the walls are gone. That is what chosen means, and I want to correct the way that word gets used. It does not mean you are superior to other people. It does not mean the universe owes you a specific person or a specific outcome. It does not mean you get to skip the ordinary difficulties of being human. It means your life has weight. It means what happened to you was not wasted material. It means you were set apart for something more than being someone's backup plan. Chosen is not a crown you wear over other people. It is a floor you refuse to go beneath. Now, the third thing, why this is surfacing now. Because there is a pattern that has been running your life, and it has finally lost its authority. Not disappeared, lost authority. There is a difference. The pattern goes like this. Being needed feels like being loved. Look at where that shows up. You became indispensable to people who never once asked how you were doing. You solved problems that were not yours because solving them made you necessary, and necessary felt safe. You confused being useful with being valued, and so you kept increasing your usefulness. And the more useful you became, the more invisible you became, which made no sense to you at all. That belief protected you once. Genuinely, somewhere early in your life, being useful was the thing that kept you connected to someone whose love was not automatic. You learned a strategy that worked in the environment you were in, but you do not live in that environment anymore. And a strategy that saved you at 15 can imprison you at 40. Armor keeps out the blade. It also keeps out the embrace. Here is why this matters now. In a practical way, and it is the part almost every message like this leaves out. If that person comes back, and I am not promising it, and I want you to hear that clearly, because I will not build your peace on a prediction I cannot make. But if they do, the old pattern will be waiting at the door with your coat. It will tell you that their return is proof of your worth. It is not. Your worth was never in question, and their arrival does not settle anything that was in doubt. It will tell you that because they are sorry, the problem is solved. Remorse is a feeling. Change is a track record. They are not the same thing, and they arrive on very different schedules. It will tell you that you have to answer immediately because they finally reached out and you would not want to seem cold. You are allowed to take a week. You are allowed to take a month. Nobody who genuinely values you will be lost by your taking time to think. So if a door opens again, here is what to look at instead of what to feel. Look at whether they name what happened specifically or whether they speak in fog. People who have genuinely reckoned with something can describe it. People who just miss the comfort speak in vague warmth and skip the details. Look at whether they ask about your life or only report on theirs. Look at whether they can hear the word no without punishing you for it. That single test will tell you more than 100 beautiful messages. Look at behavior over a span of weeks, not sentences over a span of minutes. Anyone can write a paragraph. Very few people can change a habit. And look at how you feel in your body after speaking with them. Not the excitement. Excitement is unreliable and often just the nervous system recognizing an old pattern. Look for whether you feel steadier or smaller. You are allowed to say no to a returning person. That is not bitterness. That is the whole point of having survived. And you are allowed to say yes too if the evidence supports it. Discernment is not the same as walls. Wisdom is not the same as refusing everyone forever. The goal was never to become unreachable. The goal was to become unable to be reached by anyone who has not done the work. Now, the fourth thing, what you do with all of this. And here is where I have to take something away from you gently because it will free you. Stop building your life around whether they realize. I know how good that fantasy is. Everyone has it. The moment where they finally see clearly and it lands and there is some sort of justice in it, some correction of the record, But watch what that fantasy actually does. It keeps them as the judge. It keeps their recognition as the prize. It means that even in your imagined victory, you are still standing in a courtroom waiting for someone else's verdict. You are not on trial anymore. Nobody is deliberating. Their realization, if it comes, will be their event, not yours. It will happen inside their life, in their timing, for their reasons. Some people never realize anything. Some people realize everything and still do nothing about it, and that is one of the more painful facts about human beings. Your event already happened. Your event was the night you did not send the message. Your event was the morning you got up anyway. Your event was the day you noticed you had stopped waiting and could not remember when you stopped. That is the earthquake. It already occurred. You were just too close to the ground to feel it move. Picture a house you used to stand outside of. You spent a long time out there. You watched the window. You waited to be invited in. You told yourself that if the light came on, it meant something about you. And then at some point you turned around and walked home, and you turned on your own lights, and you have been living there ever since. Now, someone is standing outside your window looking in. You do not owe them the door, and you do not have to bolt it either. The difference between the old you and the new you is not that the door is locked. It is that the key is in your hand, on your side, and the decision belongs to you. That is the whole transformation. It is not a spell, it is not a frequency, it is ownership. So let me make this practical, because insight without action fades in about 3 days. 3 things this week. First, write down the 3 conditions, not a wish list. Conditions. The 3 things that must be true for you to let anyone back into a significant place in your life, not just this person, anyone. Be specific. Honesty about hard things. Consistency over time. The ability to hear no. Whatever yours are, write them where you can see them, because in the moment of a warm message, you will forget everything you knew, and the paper will remember for you. Second, do one thing this week that has nothing to do with them. Not as a strategy, not to be seen. Something you have wanted for yourself that has been sitting on the shelf because your emotional energy was allocated elsewhere. The class, the application, the doctor's appointment, the room you have been meaning to clear out. Rebuilding is boring in the beginning, and that is why most people never start. Third, tell one safe person the truth about how this has actually been, not the summary version, the real one. A friend who has never used your honesty against you. A counselor if it is heavier than a friend should carry. There is a specific kind of relief that only exists on the other side of being known. And you have been rationing yourself for too long. And if what you are carrying is more than an ordinary weight, grief that has not moved, a darkness that has settled in, a situation that has stopped being safe, please bring a professional into it. Asking for help is not weak faith. It is faith with a phone number in its hand. If this reached something in you, there is a word you can leave below. Not as a requirement, not as a transaction. Nothing in heaven is waiting on your keyboard, and nothing you type will change what happens inside another person's mind. Your worth has never been measured in comments, but there is real value in saying a thing out loud where others can see it. So if you agree with what has been built in you, comment, "I know my worth and I am not negotiating it." Say it as a description of where you stand, not as a plea to be noticed. And if you read what other people have written there, you will find something worth seeing. People at every stage of the same road, some just entering the hard part, some standing exactly where you are, some already through it, writing back to say that the floor holds. So let me finish by answering the question this message opened with. Someone may be seeing you differently now. That is possible. It happens often when a person changes as much as you have. But that was never the important part. The important part is that you found out what you are made of when nobody was reinforcing you. You found out that you can be alone without dissolving. You found out that your kindness survived people who did not deserve it. And that is not naivety, that is strength that refused to turn bitter under pressure. You are not the same person they underestimated. And the beautiful, uncomfortable truth is that you did not become this to prove anything to them. You became this because you kept getting up on days when nobody was clapping. So do not spend the next chapter watching the window, waiting to see whether they finally understand. Understand it yourself. That is the only recognition that has ever actually changed anyone's life. You are not waiting to be chosen. That season closed. You are the one holding the key now, and the person you let through that door, next friend, partner, opportunity, anything, will be someone you selected on purpose with clear eyes from a position of strength rather than hunger. That is what all of this was for. If these messages help you find clarity, courage, and steadiness in difficult seasons, you are welcome to subscribe and keep walking with us. No pressure and nothing conditional attached to it. Go gently this week. Write your 3 conditions. Do the one thing that is only for you. And when you go home tonight, notice something small. The lights are already on. You turned them on yourself. Nobody had to come and do it for you.